The best advice I was ever given in my career was, you don't make a film, you're not a filmmaker. And albeit that is a bit harsh, it has been so helpful because it's motivated me to keep making films. You see, if people don't see you directing, they're not gonna know they can hire you as a director. And if you don't shoot a film, they're not gonna see you as a doc filmmaker. So that's exactly why I'm here. I'm in Hong Kong, I'm in transit for another project. I'm gonna let the announcement lady stop here. As I was saying, getting a project done will create momentum in your career. And I know this because we do the one-day doc competition in Art of Documentary, and we've seen so many students create breakthrough in their careers just by completing a short doc that they just shot in one day. So I'm gonna be taking you through my Milanote template. This is the step-by-step guide for completing one of those films. This is what I fill in before I do all of my projects, because if I can answer these questions in this Milanote, I know I won't ever get stuck in post-production, because these are exactly the things that I see all of our students getting stuck in. So I'm gonna take you through my project, The Prodigy, which I did shoot in one day, just like all of our students from the competition. And fun fact about that is it's probably not my best film I've ever made, but I kind of wanted to show you that it's done is better than perfect. And for your career, perhaps you always thinking that your project has to be the next biggest blockbuster film of your career might be the thing that's stopping you from actually getting a couple films under your belt, because every project you shoot is the chance to learn. So let's jump into this.
So in this first page here, we have a couple of simple columns. This is not sexy pre-production. You'll see some people have beautiful templates. I just like the information being very clear when I jump in. Your project details, references, the main character, which is so important, and then the scheduling, all the producing stuff that I hate. We'll talk about that in a sec. The first thing I think every film needs is a North Star. Get some references. Don't get too many, or else you'll kind of start creating a soup full of too many ingredients. But for this project with The Prodigy, one of my favorite films is Out of the Furnace. So I referenced that style, that aesthetic, that gritty, dark factory feeling where it doesn't feel like there's much light, it's just like one or two bulbs. I really used that style and put that into this film, The Prodigy. As well, I love Good Time. And what I particularly have always enjoyed about Good Time is what a risk it was they did with all these tight up-close shots. It's something that I often preach against. I say, you need the wides, but they did all the conversations in these extreme tights. So I wanted to explore that for Joel as an MMA person and going through that training, and just me being around his life a bit through all the filming we've done, like Kill or Be Killed, the first film we ever made with Joel. You'll see that his world is very relentless. It's exhausting. So I wanted to use those up close shots for a lot of the training to show that exhaustion. If you take someone's unique story and use a film that you like as reference, I promise you, you will create a unique project. You're using that reference as inspiration. You're not carbon copying everything they did, but you're borrowing shots, aesthetic, ideas, maybe some tones from that onto your project. Then down below, I like to put music references. I think it's so important to be having that. Me and Mike, if you even watched some of our BTS before, we play music on the way to set. It's how we get in the mood of our projects. Creating films should be fun. And the pre-production is one of my favorite parts because it's where I get to dream. And for me, having music playing is so important. So I'm always going to Music Bed. And they have some unique artists like Cubby here. So I have a couple of their songs in this, and they actually ended up being in the piece. I wanted a track that felt weird, that challenged my editing. Again, a one-day doc is about getting reps in, so I didn't want to go to the typical music that I'm used to using. I wanted to use something that maybe that I didn't even love myself, but that was unique and pushed against. So get in there and get some music references, maybe put some stuff that you weren't expecting. The next is the visual inspiration. You'll come in here and you can double click on this card. You can just drag and drop. What's really fun with Milanote is I'll just delete these. Let me pull up select set photos. Hey, like here's a bunch of my wedding photos. If I just drag these 20 photos in here and drop them in, it will begin to arrange them in a grid. So depending where you actually put your mouse, it'll start the grid there. Back to mine. But if you just take a quick glance at this visual inspiration, you'll see it's pulling from the same world, which in turn, when you look at the film, it has the same visual aesthetic. Looking at a lot of this, there's not a ton of lighting. There is a little bit in this gym, but for the most part, this is single source lighting, and you can actually see like this really looks like our final scene here, just some different coloring. I laugh at that final scene because like the sky color never matches because I was using different lenses. But wild stuff. Down below, after your visual inspiration, sometimes I like to throw one image in there just to have a little reference. I talk about the cinematography rules. This is 3 to 5 rules of how you will create consistency. Again, that's what we're looking for. We're not just looking for sporadic capture where you can try to shoot everything. We want to have rules and parameters so that when we come to the edit, I say the footage talks to each other. It knows itself already. So for me, I said I'm only taking 2 lenses, 24 mil, which you can see in all those wide shots, and then a 58 mil lens only. And then these are really simple rules. You can borrow these. Why don't you just go use these on your own film? Handheld, not shaky unless it's an active workout. So it's handheld for a bunch of stuff, but then you see the only time it gets chaotic is when the workout started. I wanted the camera to reflect the heartbeat of our athletes. The more they were sweating and the more aggressive they were, the more the camera was. But then as they calmed down, the calmer the camera was. I wanted loads of close-ups on the face, and minimal following. That was an interesting rule. I only have 1 follow shot in this project, and that's when Joel was warming up. I didn't want to do too many follow shots. Following shots just feel like you're chasing the person and you don't own the set. They're good to use. They feel very documentary, but I kind of just have had too many of them in my films. So I was like, minimal following shots. Then this was a really fun rule, which I want to just always have in all my films, which is at least 1 extreme wide of the environment. Not just a normal wide, like head to toe, but like the shot above looking down at the water, or the shot over the gully. And this is a location we knew we had, that I was like, yeah, I want an extreme wide to see how intense it is, like just how crazy athletic these guys are, sprinting up sand and dirt up this hill. And also how Leroy the dog, he's a killer too, him running all the way up there. And then this is my last rule, which probably, I won't always do, but you gotta experiment. I just said, screw up the halation, the grain, the saturation, just make it messed up. Then I always recommend having a must-have shot list. These are at least 3 shots you cannot leave the location, the set, the day without having them. So that's the extreme wide of the gully. I really wanted a scene with Joel using the wood stove so that it completes the film, because at the end you see his protege, the prodigy, Quinn, using the same stove later on. And then I wanted a final shot of Joel connecting with Quinn. And that was going to originally be that. I think I should have ended on this shot of Quinn crouching, but I ended up having them, do the pat, because that was a nice way to cut to the logo for Blue Star, who gave us a little bit of money to have their product in 1 shot. So there's a way you can kind of get your films funded as well. The next thing is your main character. You want their name, what their role is in life, and please don't just have them say their role in the film. It's a pet peeve of mine. And how you or the world sees them. So in this case, Joel's an MMA fighter who the world sees him as crazy. I've added both the world and my perspective. Maybe selfish and out of control guy, because he's just this violent MMA person if you're seeing from the outside perspective. But for myself, getting to know Joel a bit, see that deep down he actually cares for others. This is this part of Joel's career where he's like, what am I doing with all this knowledge and all this violence that I've had in my hands? Can I help someone else with their potential career? So I see down that, yeah, there is a sensitive guy underneath there, and I think I've had the chance to kind of connect with Joel in that way. This is our character sheet. Don't get overwhelmed by this. This might seem like a lot. It's something you could complete this whole million out in under an hour. And if you do, I promise you, you will make the best film you have made yet, because these are questions and ideas that most people don't think about before you get to set. If you go watch Iron Snail on our YouTube channel, it's a 1-day doc. The director on that, Charles, followed a template like this. He got into his character and understood who they were, and that came through. If you're gonna do an interview with your character that you can ask them, I've given you some starters here. You can delete these, add whatever you want in, add your own custom question, or just borrow the ones I have here. There's always kind of 3 areas you want to make sure you talk about: the journey, where have you been, the desire, what do you want, and reflection. What does this all mean? You need the person to be able to explain a bit of what's going on in their head, so you can have them looking back. Essentially what this is at the beginning of the film, you can have them talk about who they are, who they were, their desire. This needs to be the quest of the film, where the film's going. So in the case of Joel, his journey, he talks about, I've been in MMA, it's a bit of a selfish sport. That's a bit of his background. He talks about it at the beginning. But then his desires, his driving force in the film is he wants to be able to give back. He goes, what do I do with this knowledge? Like, what am I doing with my life right now? He's like, can I mentor? Can I actually be that type of person? And then the reflection here is, what does this all mean? Is at the end, Joel begins to process. And we actually did 2 interviews. It was it was a 24-hour shoot, but we started at like 7 p.m. the one night and went to 7 p.m. the next day. And so as that sun was setting, we got back in my car and Joel began to reflect on this idea of what does this mean? Like, what am I doing with my life? And so these are great questions. You can say, looking back, what do you understand now that you couldn't then? So at the beginning of the journey in your career, what would you tell yourself 10 years ago? These are some questions so that your character can actually give you some reflective ideas that you can put at the end of the film. Then here's questions to ask yourself to develop your character. These are not questions that you will be asking. These are the questions you will ask your character here. So this question here, what makes your character interesting on screen? This is an important one. And perhaps this is where you'll realize you don't have a good character for your project. Or perhaps you'll realize that you actually need to find an interesting perspective. This question is, why does this person work on screen? What is compelling about to watch them? Why film them at all? This could be their energy, their contradictions, their expressiveness. I say here, Joel works on screen because he speaks his mind and he's so violent. Someone who doesn't hold back the truth and who's also very athletic. That's interesting. I would watch that person. That's film characters. That's every action hero you've ever seen. He's the walking action hero. Next, we'll say what we'll see plays out. This is the most important card, I would say, next to knowing your character's desire. We need to know what plays out. What's the A, B, and C of your day? What will happen? What event will unfold? Where will the character go? It can even be as simple as, hey, they're gonna do their dishes, but we need to know that something is actually happening. So I talk about how we'll see Joel training by himself, then he's training with Quinlan, and then we'll see it comes full circle. Quinlan puts the Kindle in the fire. It's just a visual metaphor to say the passing of the torch. Then we come down here to what your character wants. Again, physical goal. Joel wanted to train Quinn for his next match. Real simple, doesn't have to be complicated. The emotional goal. Joel wants to feel as though his life has purpose. He wants, on a smaller macro level, that this experience is everything he's gone through isn't for nothing, that all this training and fighting can benefit someone else. It's kind of a similar theme to our film Kill or Be Killed. That was more so about Joel transitioning out of his career into firefighting and rescue working. And this one now is about him becoming a mentor. And then this is the end state. So from this, where do you think your character is going to end up? Who will they be at the end of your film? It can just be at the end of the day. It can just be a small reflection. I think of Late Frost by Flavian Kreisman. That was one of our first one-day doc winners. The end state of the film is that the farmers did save their apricots, that it was a challenge to keep the frost off it at night. But who did they become? What did they learn? That their job is challenging, that the end state is that it is quite exhausting. And so you can just show your character full of life at the beginning and exhausted at the end, but that is the change. What is the change that we see happening? It can even be an internal change. Opening frame and last frame. Here is one of the easiest ways to make your film stand out. Have your opening and closing talk to each other. What I mean by that is they don't have to be in the same scene and same setting, but what connects the opening moments of your film to your last moments of your film? What we see in the opening of the film, Joel's by himself. What do we see at the end? He's with Quinn. What's happening at the opening of the film? Joel's putting the wood in the fire by himself, and we're watching footage of him fight. What do we see nearing the end? We see footage of Quinn going into his fight. We see Quinn putting the fire into the stove himself. We see Quinn and Joel training together. There's a camaraderie there. Lastly, some obstacles. I would say that maybe the obstacle in this is just how exhausted they were. I didn't have many in this film. That would be its weakest hit. One of the biggest criticisms I have against my own film in this case. But having some obstacles along the way is interesting. Like that film, Late Frost, I mentioned the interesting thing of them having to make sure they don't burn the fruit. They're trying to heat this orchard at night because the frost has now started coming because of the climate change where they are in France. So they have these stoves out there to try to keep the frost off so that the plants don't either bloom or flower or fruit too early. Clearly not a farmer, but that struggle is for them having to get up in the middle of the night and make sure that they're having the correct temperature for this hectare of land. That's an obstacle, seeing all those things. Exhaustion, the temperature, the challenge of what they're doing. Obstacles will make your film interesting. So if you don't fill this page out, you're gonna make a mediocre film. I'll be a bit facetious in saying that, but this is the most important page on the entire thing. It's why I made it green. Lastly here, you have the filmmaker's goal. Just what do you want people to feel? And what are you doing with this? Why make this film? What is the point of this? Is it to make some money? Is this to make the client happy? What do you want people to feel at the end? What do you want the self-reflection to be? If you have a little intention for the filmmaker goal, promise you it will come through in your film. It'll be subtle, not everyone will connect with it, but I always have that in my films. You know, at the end of my film Rescate, I really wanted Ronaldo to talk about purpose on life. I mean, that's just kind of what I get into in life with my own faith and my own ideas. I'm always thinking about what is my purpose? What am I leaving on this earth? And that's where Ronaldo in that film asks one of my favorite quotes I've ever had in any of my films, and that's, what did you do with your visit on Earth? I love that. It's a brief moment we have here on Earth, and what are you doing with it? Are you making films that explore people's pain and challenge and actually show someone that they can get through it themselves? Or are you making some more reels? You know, are you buying some more camera gear and using that as an excuse to shoot your film? What gift are you giving this earth? And I promise you, if you're watching this video and you've been here this long, you have a gift of filmmaking, and you need to go make that film. Don't delay. Lastly, here is your shooting schedule. I put a little example of what it could look like if you're shooting from just like sunrise to sunset. This is a time map. You can use the sandwich schedule that we talk about in Art of Documentary. B-roll, interview, B-roll. Shoot B-roll in the morning light when the sun's low, in the middle of the day when the sun's high. Do your interview when the sun's low again later in the day. Go shoot some more B-roll or go shoot a scene. By then your character will be warmed up and you'll be able to get something much more interesting. I know that was a lot of content coming after you, but you have this template to follow. Go fill it in. It won't feel that sexy and inspiring perhaps at first, but if you play some music in the background while you do this, and you go through these questions and you fill in each one of these selections, these boxes here, especially if you get dialed in on your character sheet, you're gonna feel very confident when you get to set. You're gonna know exactly what you need to shoot, and you're not gonna have questions. It's okay to be stressed on set, it's not okay to be confused. And the point of something like this type of pre-production, is it takes the confusion away from what you're trying to capture. Because there's gonna be a lot of variables that come at you on the day. And so if at least you have a North Star, if you have some references, if you know your opening and your closing shot, and you know that there's some obstacles in between, you're gonna shoot something that works. So I appreciate you watching this. If you want more information on doc filmmaking and all aspects of filmmaking, Art of Documentary is where you want to be. That's our course and academy. Over 9,000 filmmakers are in that, making projects all the time. And like I mentioned, this one-day doc project, that's something that our students get to enter into. We have thousands of dollars on the line in this one that we're giving away, products, and as I mentioned, Millinode's sponsoring that best film category, giving away $3,000 to the top winner and a pro lifetime subscription, and all the runners up will also get a Millinode 1-year subscription. So don't delay. End of August is when the doors are opening for AOD. And if you're in Art of Documentary, get your film, go make it. It's gonna be good, I promise you. Oh, you're gonna learn so much. It's gonna challenge you, it's gonna be frustrating. You might cry a little, but it's gonna make you a better filmmaker, and that's the point of all of this. Thanks again. I hate goodbyes, but I love hydration. That's not that funny. What's a funnier thing to say? What just came to mind was, I love that scene in Homeward Bound when the golden retriever comes out. It was my first time crying watching a film as a kid. That moved me. But I'll never get a golden retriever. They're so smelly.